Everyone. So the Houston Rockets are on an absolute tear right now, currently on a 9-game winning streak, and a lot of it is led by their young star, Jalen Green. Now, Jalen Green, again, he is 22 years old. I mean, this kid has so much potential, so much upside, so much promise. This guy is out here just torching teams right now. And a guy that's young enough to be taken in this upcoming year's draft. So sky's the limit for this kid. And this is a kid that's doing it all on just like raw talent and instinct, right? He hasn't even developed his grown man body yet. He hasn't even developed the proper understanding that you see these guys in their later years when they start reaching their prime on how to get to their spots easier, how to, when to go 100%, when to, I can beat this guy on 80%, and that way I have some reserve to close this game out, right? Like, just really grasping defensive sets and how teams are going to target him on the defense side of things and stuff like that, right? As he continues to grow and develop and become and get in transition into his prime, I mean, this dude's going to be good. This guy's going to be he's going to be a hooper for sure. And especially at like the shooting guard position, there's like right now very few like top elite shooting guards, right? Like, Anthony Edwards, I think, is the best. And I mean, Anthony Edwards, I think genuinely could, in 5 years, you could tell me he's the best player in the league, and I'd fully believe you. But Jalen Green, I think, is a guy that can be in that conversation with Anthony Edwards and will be for many years to come. I think Houston's got a real just piece with Jalen Green. And it's surprising because I've mentioned this before with him. The Houston Rockets were looking to trade him this past offseason and have touched on potentially trading him on several occasions. Now, there are and have been questions about just like his character and just his immaturities. But again, he's 22 years old. He's a kid. Like, let him grow, let him develop, put some proper structure around him, right? Isn't that the whole reason why you got these veteran guys? Isn't that the whole reason you got a Jeff Green, a Dylan Brooks, Fred VanVleet? Isn't that why you got these guys to bring in to help provide some structure and some stability with a young group? And you got a head coach and like an Ime Udoka. Like, you tried to put the structure around him. Now, obviously, when they had Porter, it was like, okay, well, maybe you can kind of get away with trading Green, but after the circumstances that happened with him, it was like, okay, well, maybe we can't anymore, right? So the big thing is that, like, now it makes no sense to trade him. But back then, them exploring to trade him, I still was like, again, he's 22 years old and he has a lot of talent and upside. Like, what's the point? What are you going to get? Well, we got a report per Shams that says this. The Brooklyn Nets reportedly turned down a trade offer from the Houston Rockets that included Jalen Green and multiple first-round picks for Mikal Bridges, per Shams Charania. To me, this is the Brooklyn Nets. I think they made a big mistake, right? A big mistake. Because look, Mikal Bridges is an excellent player. I really like Mikal Bridges. Don't get me wrong. But where does he rank as far as like your best players on a contender? He's not your first best player. So is he like your second? Maybe. I think it depends on who your first is. Realistically, he's probably like a super third guy, right? You have him as like a legit 3-and-D guy that go off 25 on any given night. But the Brooklyn Nets aren't going anywhere. They're not very good. They're not, unless something crazy happens in the offseason, they're probably not going to be very good for a while. Mikal Bridges isn't 22 years old. If you could get, say, Jalen Green and 3 first-round picks for a Mikal Bridges, why wouldn't you do that? Like, again, now granted, you can make the argument in hindsight, maybe they didn't think that Jalen Green would be what he's been this year, but still, like, he's a 22-year-old kid. You're getting a bunch of draft picks. You're getting a real baller. It's not like he was bad the previous years. Not like he didn't show the promise the previous years. Like, he's a guy that you looked at and went, man, you could see the potential. Okay, he could be a real player in this league if he continues to grow, develop, and kind of comes into his own. I don't understand why. Like, Brooklyn is like holding Mikal Bridges like he's Michael Jordan or something, right? Like, and again, I like Mikal Bridges a ton. Mikal Bridges, I think, is an excellent player, but he's not he's not some spring chicken. He's not some guy that you're gonna have for the next like 7 years to do a rebuild. I mean, he's 27 years old. He's gonna be 28 next year, and again, like I get, he's a hot commodity, right? He's a piece that you want, and that many teams would want and value. But like all the reports of like some of the deals that they've gotten for Mikal Bridges or offered for Mikal Bridges, assuming they're true. We don't know how true these things are, but let's assume that they are. I mean, come on, man. Like, you're really building your franchise around Mikal Bridges and think you're going to win a championship? Like, Mikal Bridges isn't your best player on a championship contender. There's very few of those guys, period, in this league. Right? Like, and if you can flip him into assets that could eventually get you there, or even have you be laterally the same, but you get and gain assets in the process, right? Like, let's say with Jalen Green, the Houston Rockets are basically the same team, same record, same everything. Yeah, but at least you got 2, 3, 4 first round picks in the process, is my thought. Right? Like, why wouldn't you get those picks so that way you can maybe elevate and kind of expedite your vision of turning this franchise around and getting back to being a contender? I don't understand why you wouldn't do that now. I don't understand why they're holding Mikal Bridges like he's this big superstar that, the only way we're parting with him is for like a Giannis or something. I don't get that. It doesn't add up to me. It really doesn't. It doesn't make any sense to me. From Houston's side of things, I think they really dodged a bullet, if I'm being honest. Don't get me wrong, Mikal Bridges would have been nice. And, I think that the Houston Rockets would have put themselves in a position to where let's say maybe they would have been slightly better, right? Because you would have had a little more veteran-led, a little more veteran experience. But I mean, how much better? And like, what's the goal for Houston? Are you trying to just be middle of the pack? My problem is I feel like Houston overpaid for Dylan Brooks and, Fred VanVleet and Jeff Green, sure. But everyone else, like, and I get that that's probably the only reason why they came to the Houston Rockets with the young team to begin with. I don't think that they were lining up to go to Houston without getting some substantial compensation. But I just, like, again, I like Mikal Bridges, but how much better is Houston right now? The upside, I definitely think isn't as high. But let's say their starting five is what? It's Fred VanVleet, Mikal Bridges, Dylan Brooks, Sengun, and Jabari Smith. Sure. So your young core is Smith and Sengun. Okay, right? And you got guys like Cam Whitmore and so I don't know. I like the idea of keeping Jeff Green, or at least develop him enough to where, like, if you want to get off of him, because you're not winning anything very likely in the next couple years, right? So, like, let's say he gets to the age 25. Let's say he is like a 27 point a game guy. Are you talking 3 years from now? Let's say, what if he is a 27 plus point a game guy and he is dominating? And you're like, we'd still want to kind of get off of him. Well, then fine. You can get off of him, but the return is probably going to be much more substantial. And now you could get, or like, let's say Cam Whitmore, he ends up becoming something. It's like, we don't really need Whitmore and Green. So maybe we look to trade Green now. I just think your return would be better. You'd get a larger yield for your investment in this young player. That's just kind of my thoughts about it. But Anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts on the matter? What are your thoughts on the situation? Are you glad that Houston didn't do it? Do you think that Houston should have done it? Are you glad that the Nets didn't do it? Do you think that the Nets should have done it? Again, however you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. Helps me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.